While I was away on a business trip, my mother-in-law secretly invited my husband's ex-girlfriend to move into our house. When we confronted her about it, she responded by threatening to cut her own son out of her will. Hook asterisk, can you imagine walking into your own home after a long, grueling business trip, expecting a sweet reunion with your husband, only to find his ex-girlfriend stirring a pot of sauce in your kitchen, wearing your apron? My stomach dropped. But that was just the beginning. When we finally confronted my mother-in-law about her shocking betrayal, she threatened to cut her own son out of her will. Yes, you heard that right. So, let me tell you, this isn't just some casual family drama. This is about a mother-in-law who crossed every line imaginable, a husband forced to choose, and a relationship that was tested in the most insane way possible. My name is protagonist's name, if applicable, otherwise and I've been married to my amazing husband, Jack, for 5 years. We have a really solid relationship, you know? We talk things out, we support each other. It's not perfect, no marriages, but we're a team. My job as a management consultant means I travel sometimes, usually for a week or two. Jack has always been incredibly supportive of my career. He cheers me on, encourages me to go for promotions. He's the best. But there's one person who doesn't share that enthusiasm. My mother-in-law, Sandra. From day one, she's made it crystal clear she doesn't approve of my career path. She's very old school, a stay-at-home mom her whole life, and she thinks that's the only right way for a woman to live. Every time I mention work or a promotion, she'd hit me with a passive-aggressive comment about slowing down and focusing on family. Or she'd ask about kids in this really pointed, uncomfortable way. Jack tries to defend me, bless his heart, but he's a conflict avoider. So instead of shutting her down, he'd just change the subject or give an awkward laugh. It was frustrating, but I understood. Still, I wished he'd be a bit more direct. Despite all this, I really tried with Sandra. I invited her to lunch, sent thoughtful gifts, wrote thank you notes. I even learned to cook some of Jack's childhood favorites using her recipes, hoping it would thaw her. But nothing worked. I always felt like she saw me as not good enough for her son. And to twist the knife, she constantly brought up Jack's ex-girlfriend, Leslie. Seriously, I've never met someone so obsessed with an ex. According to Sandra, Leslie was this sweet, domestic girl who would have made the perfect mother. Jack and Leslie dated in college, but broke up because they had different life goals. Jack rarely talks about her, has no lingering feelings, but Sandra? You'd think she was still holding out hope for a reunion. Then, about a month ago, I had to go on a 2-week business trip. Big project, huge opportunity for a promotion. The timing was awful, though, because Jack had just sprained his ankle. Not serious, but he was limping. I offered to delay my trip, but he insisted I go. He said he'd be fine, it was a minor sprain, and this project was too important for my career. So I went. While I was away, I called him every night. Quick check-ins. He always sounded fine. He mentioned his mom was dropping by with food, which I actually appreciated. I mean, she's difficult, but I thought, okay, at least she's helping. What he didn't mention, that Sandra had invited Leslie to stay at our house to help take care of him. And I found out the hard way. I finished the project 3 days early. I was exhausted, stressed, and honestly, just so excited to surprise Jack and relax. Well, the surprise was definitely on me. I walked into our house and immediately smelled something cooking. I figured Jack had ordered takeout, maybe made some pasta. But when I stepped into the kitchen, I was floored. Leslie, standing at my stove, stirring a pot of sauce like she owned the place. In my kitchen, wearing my apron, I froze. Just stood there, stunned. Then I saw her purse on the counter, her toiletries neatly arranged in our bathroom, her clothes hanging in the guest room closet. It looked like she'd moved in for the week. Jack was on the couch, foot propped up, watching TV. The look on his face when he saw me? Pure panic. Like a deer caught in headlights. He looked guilty, shocked, speechless. He scrambled to introduce me to Leslie, who looked incredibly awkward, but tried to be polite. She apologized, explained that Sandra had called her, saying Jack needed help because his career-obsessed wife was off abandoning him again. Apparently, Sandra had painted this picture of me as constantly traveling, barely caring for Jack, leaving him completely helpless. Leslie said she only planned to drop off groceries, but Sandra convinced her to stay and properly take care of the house. And the wild part? Leslie thought Jack knew and was totally fine with it. She assumed we discussed everything. I was furious, but I didn't want to explode in front of her, especially if she was truly clueless. So I took a deep breath, kept my voice as calm as I could, and thanked her for helping. Then I said, very clearly, that since I was home now, she didn't need to stay any longer. To her credit, she seemed genuinely embarrassed. She apologized again, packed up her stuff, and was gone within the hour. Once Leslie left, Jack and I sat down for what became one of the most tense, emotionally draining conversations of our lives. He swore he had no idea his mom would invite Leslie to stay. He said Leslie just showed up with groceries, claiming Sandra had told her he needed help. He was caught off guard, didn't want to be rude, figured she'd just help with a meal or two. But then it snowballed into her staying overnight, setting up in the guest room. He admitted things got weird fast, but he didn't know how to handle it without making everything worse. He kept saying he didn't want to upset me during my important business trip. So instead of being upfront, he just hid it. Every time we spoke, he avoided bringing it up, thinking Leslie would be gone before I got back, and I'd never know. Yeah, that plan really backfired. I was so hurt, not just because he didn't tell me, but because it felt like a massive breach of trust. We talk every day when I'm away. To walk into my own home and find that? I felt completely blindsided. But I could see he was truly embarrassed and remorseful. He kept apologizing. And honestly, the more we talked, the clearer it became that Sandra had completely manipulated the situation. Not just him, but Leslie too. Still, it was a bitter pill to swallow. I felt so disrespected, not just as his wife, but as someone who tried so hard to maintain peace in the family, even when it was one-sided. And Sandra. Oh, she was the real cherry on top. The very next day, she showed up unannounced like she often does, using the spare key we gave her for actual emergencies. She clearly wasn't expecting to see me. She walked in, looking confused, like she expected Florence Nightingale to still be there. When she saw me, her face just dropped. No, hi honey. No warm welcome home. Just pure disappointment. I didn't waste a second. I asked her straight out, why did you think it was okay to invite Jack's ex-girlfriend into our home without checking with either of us? She didn't even try to deny it. She launched into a full-blown lecture, telling me I was a terrible wife for abandoning her poor, injured son while I was off playing businesswoman. She actually used the phrase, a real woman would have canceled her trip and stayed home to care for her man. She said Leslie had shown more devotion in a few days than I had in years, that I deserved this situation for being so selfish. She even suggested Jack should reconsider who he married. At that point, I was seething. But before I could respond, Jack jumped in. Thank God he did. He didn't just stand up for me. He laid into her in a way I'd never seen before. He told her he was the one who encouraged me to go, that he was fine, it was a minor sprain, and I hadn't abandoned him at all. He said what she did was completely out of line and disrespectful to our marriage. Then he demanded she return the spare key. She looked utterly stunned, like she couldn't believe her son was taking my side. She tried to backtrack, saying she was just trying to help, that Jack needed support, that she didn't mean any harm. But Jack wasn't buying it. He told her flat out that she owed both of us a sincere apology if she ever wanted to be welcome in our home again. That's when she totally flipped. She got defensive, accused me of brainwashing him, said I was turning him against his own mother. She couldn't believe he was treating her like this after all she'd done for him. Then, she burst into tears and stormed out, slamming the door behind her like a teenager. That was a week ago. Since then, she's been blowing up Jack's phone, texts, calls, voicemails. Some are tearful and apologetic, but only directed at him. Never once has she tried to apologize to me. Other times, she swings to the opposite extreme, accusing me of stealing him, ruining the family, telling relatives that I'm the reason Jack won't see her. which isn't true. Jack made the decision himself. He's genuinely angry and disappointed. Now, extended family members are weighing in. Sandra's getting older. She meant well. Family is all we have. Just forgive her already. I know they mean well, but they weren't there. They didn't see how vicious and manipulative she was. They don't understand how far over the line this all went. Jack has been solidly in my corner, which I appreciate more than I can express. He reassures me daily that I did nothing wrong. But I can see how much it's hurting him to be at odds with his mom. He loves her, flaws and all. And even though she crossed a major line, she's still his mother. That kind of emotional tug-of-war isn't easy for anyone. Honestly, I'm torn. I don't want to be the reason Jack is estranged from his mother. I don't want to be the wedge. But at the same time, I don't think I should have to sweep this under the rug and pretend everything's fine. What she did was invasive, disrespectful, and just plain mean. She knew exactly what she was doing when she called Leslie. She's not some confused old lady. She's calculated. She deliberately tried to sabotage my marriage. So now I'm sitting here, all these questions swirling in my head. Was I wrong to go on that trip? Should I have stayed home? Am I being too harsh expecting a full apology, not just one for Jack? Should I be more understanding of her traditional values, even when they clash with everything we believe? More than anything, I just want to know, am I overreacting, or was this as big of a violation as it feels like? Update 1 *. First of all, thank you all for the overwhelming support and advice. Seriously, I wasn't expecting this post to get so much attention, but reading your comments has made me feel so much less crazy about all of this. After reading your responses, Jack and I had another long talk about boundaries with his mom. We both agree what she did was completely inappropriate, and we need to be united. Jack has been incredible through this, consistently putting our marriage first and standing up to his mother, which I know isn't easy for him. Yesterday, Sandra showed up at our door again unannounced. This time, Jack answered, and he made it clear. She wasn't welcome inside until she was ready to sincerely apologize to both of us, especially me. Sandra started crying right there on our doorstep, saying she felt replaced and forgotten since Jack got married. She said she was just trying to help in the only way she knew how and didn't understand why everyone was so upset. Jack held firm. He told her that regardless of her intentions, inviting his ex-girlfriend to stay in her home while I was away was a deliberate attempt to undermine our marriage. And he wouldn't tolerate anyone disrespecting his wife, not even his mother. He suggested she take some time to reflect, and when she was ready for an adult conversation and a genuine apology, then we could talk about rebuilding. Sandra left in tears again, but this time, it felt more sad than angry. Jack was pretty shaken up afterwards. He's never had to stand up to her like this. I think the reality that her actions have serious consequences is finally starting to sink in for both of them. I also learned something interesting from Jack's sister, Emily. Apparently, Sandra has been in contact with Leslie on and off for years, meeting for lunch, keeping tabs on her life. Emily thinks Sandra never truly accepted our marriage and has been holding on to hope that Jack and Leslie would reconnect. That really put things in perspective. It makes me wonder if this emergency care situation was a calculated move rather than just a misguided attempt to help. As for Leslie, Jack reached out to her, with my full knowledge, of course, to apologize for putting her in such an awkward position. She apparently had no idea about the full situation and felt terrible. She told Jack that Sandra had painted a very different picture, making it sound like Jack and I were having serious marital problems because of my workaholic tendencies and that he was struggling to recover from his injury completely alone. Leslie said she would never have agreed to come if she'd known the truth, and she apologized for stepping into our home without checking with both of us first. I'm still processing all of this, but I feel more confident in our decision to establish firm boundaries with Sandra. Jack and I are a united front, and I'm so grateful for that. We've agreed that if and when Sandra apologizes sincerely, we can slowly work on rebuilding trust. But things will never go back to how they were. No more emergency key. No more unannounced visits. And any disrespect toward me or our marriage will have immediate consequences. On a positive note, Jack's ankle is completely healed, and I got the promotion I was working toward on that business trip. We're celebrating with a weekend getaway next week. Just the two of us. Phones off. We've earned some peaceful time after all this drama. Update 2 asterisk okay, so the situation with Sandra has taken a dramatic turn. And things have escalated to a point I never could have predicted. 2 days ago, Jack's sister, Emily, called to tell us Sandra had been hospitalized after fainting at home. Physically, she's fine. Doctors said it was likely due to stress and slightly elevated blood pressure. But she's been keeping Emily and the rest of the family busy with constant calls and complaints about her terrible treatment by us. Jack went to visit her in the hospital. I offered to go, but he thought it would be better to talk to her alone first. According to Jack, as soon as he arrived, Sandra burst into tears. She started talking about how she might not have much time left, and how she only wanted to see her son, happy with the right kind of woman. Even in her hospital bed, she couldn't help but take jabs at me and my career. When Jack tried to explain why her actions were inappropriate, she kept interrupting him, saying he was attacking a sick old woman and choosing me over his own flesh and blood. He said the conversation just went in circles, with Sandra refusing to acknowledge her wrongdoing, insisting she was just looking out for his best interests. What happened next still has me in shock. Apparently, Sandra had invited Leslie to visit her in the hospital too, without telling Jack. Leslie showed up while Jack was still there, creating this incredibly awkward, tense situation. Sandra immediately brightened up, started gushing about how wonderful it was that the two people she cares about most were there with her. Jack said he was furious, but he didn't want to cause a scene in the hospital. He politely greeted Leslie, who looked mortified, and then told his mother he had to leave. But before he walked out, Sandra said, loud enough for several nurses to hear, that she was changing her will to leave everything to Leslie. Because, and I quote, she's the only one who truly cares about me in my time of need. When Jack got home, he was visibly upset. He said he finally sees the full extent of his mother's manipulation and that he needs some distance from her for his own mental health. He called Emily to fill her in, and Emily confirmed that Sandra had been making similar dramatic statements to other family members, claiming that I've stolen her son and that she's all alone in the world now. The most surprising development? Leslie actually reached out to me directly afterward. She got my number from Emily, with Jack's permission, and called to apologize for the whole mess. She explained that Sandra had been calling her daily since the original incident, painting herself as the victim, saying Jack was being controlled by his career-obsessed wife, me. Leslie said she initially felt sorry for Sandra and agreed to visit, not knowing Jack would be there or that Sandra was trying to create another uncomfortable situation. Leslie was surprisingly kind and understanding. She said she's known Sandra long enough to recognize her manipulative tactics and that she wanted me to know she has no interest in interfering in our marriage. She even revealed that one of the reasons she and Jack broke up in college was because she couldn't deal with Sandra's constant meddling and expectations. We ended up talking for nearly an hour. And I have to say, I actually like her. Under different circumstances, we might even be friends. Jack has decided to take a complete break from communicating with his mother for at least a few weeks. He sent her a text explaining that her behavior at the hospital was the last straw, and he needs time to process everything. He's asked Emily to be the point of contact for Sandra's medical updates, but otherwise, he doesn't want to hear from or about her for a while.
The family is divided on this.
Some relatives think we're being too harsh on a sick old woman. Others, who have experienced Sandra's manipulation firsthand, are supportive of Jack's decision to create distance. It's a mess, but Jack and I are staying united through it all. I've suggested Jack consider talking to a therapist to help process his complicated feelings about his mother. Growing up with someone who uses manipulation, guilt, and emotional blackmail leaves lasting effects, and I think professional guidance might help him navigate this difficult time. He's considering it, which I see as a positive step. As for me, I'm doing my best to support Jack without pushing my own agenda. This is his mother and his relationship to manage, though it affects me, too. I'm trying to be patient and understanding while also maintaining the boundaries we've set together. I never imagined my mother-in-law issues would escalate to this level. But here we are. I'm grateful for Jack's unwavering support. Our marriage feels stronger than ever, despite, or maybe because of, these challenges. Update 3 asterisk you guys. The situation with Sandra has completely exploded. And things have taken a turn I never could have predicted. 2 days ago, Jack received a large envelope in the mail. Inside were old photos of him and Leslie from college, along with a multi-page handwritten letter from Sandra. It was essentially a guilt trip detailing all the sacrifices she'd made for him, how heartbroken she was that he would abandon her for a woman who doesn't even want to give her grandchildren. There were also these disturbing comments about how she'd always considered Leslie to be her real daughter-in-law and how she'd been patiently waiting for Jack to come to his senses. Jack was visibly disturbed. He decided it was time to have a serious conversation with Emily about their mother's behavior. They met for coffee while I was at work, and Emily revealed something that changed everything. Sandra has apparently been doing this kind of thing for years. Not just with Jack, but with Emily, too. When Emily first started dating her now-husband, David, Sandra repeatedly invited Emily's high school ex-boyfriend to family events without telling her, made comments about how Emily and her ex were meant to be, and even tried to arrange accidental meetings between them. Emily had never told Jack because she didn't want to damage his relationship with their mother, especially since Sandra seemed to favor him. But then, Emily dropped an even bigger bombshell. Their father, who passed away 10 years ago, had actually been on the verge of divorcing Sandra shortly before his heart attack because of her controlling and manipulative behavior. Apparently, Sandra had systematically isolated him from his friends and family over the years, always playing the victim when he tried to establish independence. Emily had even found letters their father had written but never sent, detailing his unhappiness and his plans to leave. This information hit Jack hard. He started recalling incidents from his own childhood that he had normalized, but now recognized as clear manipulation. Sandra pretending to be sick when he wanted to go to friends' houses. Guilt-tripping him when he chose college activities over visiting home. Subtly undermining every girlfriend he ever had. He realized that what we're experiencing now isn't new behavior for Sandra. It's just the first time he's truly seeing it clearly. With this new perspective, Jack decided it was time for a direct confrontation. He called Sandra and arranged to meet her at a neutral location, a quiet cafe. He asked me not to come, which I understood. This was something he needed to do alone. When he returned, he looked both emotionally drained and somehow relieved. He said he had laid everything out for Sandra. The pattern of manipulation. The inappropriate behavior with Leslie. The disrespect toward me and our marriage. And the newly revealed information from Emily about their father. He told her that he loved her because she was his mother. But he couldn't have a relationship with her unless she acknowledged her behavior and got professional help. Sandra's reaction was apparently explosive. She denied everything. Accused Emily of lying about their father. Called me a variety of unflattering names. And then she played the ultimate card. If you walk away from me now, don't bother coming back. She told Jack he would be dead to her if he chose to side with me and Emily over her. Jack said he simply stood up, told her he was sorry she felt that way, and left. He said the strangest thing was how calm he felt in that moment. Like he was finally free of a weight he didn't even know he was carrying. When he got home, he found that Sandra had already blocked him on all social media and sent messages to several family members claiming that Jack had verbally abused her at the cafe and threatened her. Fortunately, most of the family knows Sandra well enough to take her claims with a grain of salt. And those who don't? Well, Jack says he's okay with letting them believe what they want for now. The most surprising development came yesterday. Leslie contacted us again. Apparently, after being dragged into this drama repeatedly, she decided to block Sandra's number. In response, Sandra showed up at Leslie's workplace, causing a scene and telling Leslie's coworkers that she was a homewrecker trying to steal her son from his wife. Security had to escort Sandra out, and Leslie is now seriously considering a restraining order. Jack, Emily, and I met last night to discuss next steps. We're all concerned about Sandra's escalating behavior and her refusal to acknowledge any wrongdoing. Emily has spoken with her mother's doctor about the possibility of a psychological evaluation. But since Sandra is legally competent and not a danger to herself or others in a way that can be proven, there's not much that can be done unless she agrees to seek help voluntarily. For now, Jack has decided to maintain no contact with his mother. He's mourning the relationship he thought they had and coming to terms with who she really is. It's painful to watch, but I'm incredibly proud of how he's handling it, with grace, clarity, and firm boundaries. As for me, I'm supporting Jack through this difficult time, while also processing my own feelings. I never wanted to come between Jack and his mother, but I also refuse to be disrespected or manipulated. I truly believe we're doing the right thing by standing our ground, even though it's undeniably painful. Jack and I are planning to start couples therapy. Not because our relationship is in trouble, it's actually stronger than ever, but because we want to make sure we have the tools to navigate this complicated situation in a healthy way. We're also considering moving to a new house in the same city, partly for a fresh start, and partly because Sandra knows where we live, and she has shown she doesn't respect our boundaries. I never imagined my mother-in-law issues would lead to such a complete family upheaval. But in a strange way, I think this painful process will ultimately lead to healthier relationships for everyone involved, except perhaps for Sandra, who seems determined to remain the victim in her own story. Thank you all for your support throughout this crazy journey. Your advice and encouragement have been invaluable during one of the most challenging periods of our marriage. I'll update again if anything changes. Call to action *. Honestly, this whole ordeal has been a roller coaster. It makes you wonder how much manipulation you can endure from family before it's too much. Have any of you ever faced such extreme family drama, especially with a mother-in-law? What did you do to protect your marriage and your peace? I'd really love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below.